Hey, good Thursday evening to you. How are you guys? It's good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. How are you doing, everyone? I hope you're doing extra special well. I, of course, am your host, Bill Sylvie, a.k.a. The Dungeon Delver, and I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Welcome to the show. If you're just swinging by, like you are cruising the information superhighway, and YouTube sent you my way, and you haven't done so already, please click that subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and you'll find out all the times I do this, whether it's a pop-up live stream, I just get a mad posh to sit in front of the camera, or it's something well planned. I'm just kidding. Nothing around here is ever well planned, unless it's a matter of having one of my awesome guests on. And we do have awesome guests on from time to time. Creators, artists, writers from every corner of the RPG hobby and beyond. And they could just be friends, just people whose company I enjoy and people I like talking to and hanging out with. We'll bring them on. And that applies to you guys out there in the audience as well. If you if you have got something that you'd like to talk about on the show, some wild new RPG that you think is going to shake the foundations of the hobby, just whatever, just let me know. We'll see how it works out. 1-843-6572. That is correct. That is correct. Do you know, Robert? Do you know? Now, it's no fair Googling it. It's no fair Googling it. You've got to know it. You've got to know it. It's important. Jorge, good to see you. Local 433 Gumby, Robert Phillips, Jimmy Invictus, Zachary Melvin. So the question from Jimmy was, is this going to be a discussion of the cyberpunk genre or the game Cyberpunk 2020? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. We've got a lot of stuff to get to now. In the space that I have, in the amount of time that I have, I'm not going to attempt to explore every avenue of cyberpunk as a literary and artistic movement, because we would be here until dawn tomorrow. And only then, I think, getting through it all. But we're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to talk about its exogenesis. We're going to talk about the creation of the genre as a whole, and a whole lot more, which hopefully you guys will enjoy. But there's something I wanted to kind of address, sort of an elephant in the room. Now, those of you who follow me on social media might have seen me vague posting about a miniature and my displeasure with someone over that miniature. And, I feel like we can talk to each other, right? I can use this space. I can talk about things that are weighing on my mind a little bit, and you guys are pretty good about it. And I think we've got a good enough audience host relationship that I can bring this up. So in brief, the miniature that I had thrown in the bottle of mineral spirits to strip, it was an exquisitely painted Type 5 demon miniature. The Malarith. I don't know what they call them in second edition D&D, Bazatu or Tannery or whatever. It was a demoness. What beautifully painted. And right into the alcohol it went. which is kind of funny because the alcohol didn't do that much to strip it. It was actually just half a day in simple green. You know, it sat in the alcohol overnight, but when it went into simple green, it was like, nope, I'm just going to start flaking, just flaking right off. Hey, Imperial Ramblings. So into the dip, as I call it, it went. And I have spent the day off and on taking it out and scrubbing on it and taking it out and scrubbing on it a little bit. And when I have removed every iota of paint with dental picks, toothpicks, an X-Acto knife, a brass brush, a toothbrush, and some elbow grease, I will prime it. I will wash it. I will clean it to get the residue off. I will prime it and I will repaint it myself. That was the final reminder of someone who I knew for 25 years, who in late summer 2017 laid an unfixable, egregious hurt on my family. I introduced him to AD&D. I introduced him to the hobby of mini paintings. I gave him duplicate paints and brushes and a small collection of unpainted minis. And he and his wife, a player's handbook each. So it sat on the shelf of glory staring at me day in and day out for years. Gorgeous mini. I love that type of demon. Serpent women in general. It's not a fetish. That's a joke if you've talked to me about it before. Anyway. And I always wondered, what should I do about it? And so I was talking to the incomparable Bill T from Paint Minis Live 2 nights ago. We were talking about the Red Dragon, which I think he may actually be live streaming this evening. He may actually be live streaming the finishing touches on it. And I was lamenting the fact that she would sit there in her perfect little paint job and stare at me and remind me forever. And he said, just throw it in some Dettol or some paint thinner or something and scrub it clean and prime it and repaint it yourself. And I mean, one less painted mini is, a mini that I don't have painted anymore. The more I thought about it, the more I've kind of felt that fire, that anger, that ire at what had happened sort of well up in me. As I was talking to Bill, I snapped it off of its base, which ruined the base, unfortunately. Base went in the garbage. And threw it in a jar of mineral spirits, sealing its fate. There's no coming back from the mini being thrown in solvent. And hands up, tell me anybody out there who has ever just dropped a mini in solvent and go, oh crap, no, I actually don't want to do that, and take it out and you can save it. You can't. At that point, it's done. I mean, unless the thing is shellacked. So into the alcohol it went, and humorously, it didn't hardly affect it at all. But yeah, when I put it in simple green, that was all she wrote. As my wife's cat walking across the table. So that's basically what that was all about. And I'll show it to you when I get it painted. When I get it painted back up. And I had done that with 3 or 4 other of my minis that he had very helpfully painted pretty nicely also. Just that one I could never bring myself to for whatever reason, I don't know. Cat. Anyway, so that's all that drama was. It's over. It's done. She is almost completely down to bare metal. I just want to get the last of the paint out of the nooks and crannies and prime her and begin anew. So that's what's going on. Dungeon Minister, how are you? It is good to see you, Padre. It is good to see you. Jack Photon says, simple green, a little dab will do you. It will absolutely. Let me tell you what. Simple green is amazing stuff. So the dragon that Bill T is painting on Paint Minis Live, when I first got it, it was someone had attempted to paint the dragon using probably the it's right on the tip of my tongue. Poly S. The Poly S colors recommended: red for the body and wings, yellow for the belly, and so on and etc. So it had a pretty botched paint job on it. And I didn't know what the composition of them was. And I was like, okay, well, it's going to take a while. So, how do I strip it? And people are like, oh, simple green, use simple. So, okay, here we go. And I bought a bottle of simple green concentrate. I poured it in a Tupperware container. And I was like, I guess I'll have to soak the wing for a while. And I dropped the wing in there. And literally a flake of paint, the size and shape of the entire wing, just floated off. Like the entire layer of paint just floated right off the minute it lowered down into the simple green. So Robert Phillips says he needs a Nintendo Power Glove to wear for Cyber Night and Mirror Shades. Yes. Yeah, fortunately it wasn't Tester's Dungeon Minister, because at that point, I mean, oh God, what can get enamel paint off? And by the way, I should point out, now I wouldn't recommend pouring an ice cold glass of it to enjoy on a hot summer's day, but simple green is very, very, very safe. They use it for environmental remediation. When dirt becomes toxic, they pour simple green through it to clean the dirt. So simple green is your go-to. And it's one of those things that, like, I've seen things mentioned that like Warhammer fans in the UK use to clean miniatures with, and they've mentioned the names of it before, and I'm not I don't remember anything off the top of my head. What is it? Export spray or something like that down in Australia. And I'm like, what is that language you're even saying things in? And then I get the same back when I say simple green. What? Simple green what then? Simple green. Oh, and by the way, if you're going to do it, boys and girls, if you're going to strip your minis with simple green, and it is plastic safe. It is plastic safe. It is resin safe. It is dental plaster safe. It is obviously it's metal safe. But if you're going to use simple green, get the concentrate. The regular simple green is fine, but the concentrated stuff, it's better. It's faster. I use it to clean my palettes. I've used it to clean brushes that were unsalvageable. I've used it to, obviously, miniatures. So I highly recommend simple green for all of your miniature painting issues. It am good stuff. Not aluminum safe, according to Orbital. Huh. It'll eat aluminum. Wild. Now I want to try it. Now I want to go put a little bit on some aluminum foil and see what happens to it. That is crazy. That is completely off the hook. I did not know that it was reactive with aluminum. Wild. That is wild. Because I use it like I will use it to clean we have a glass stovetop. And I'll use it there when the stovetop gets too gunked up. But I don't think there's any aluminum in the ceramite, the Ceran, 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 that's made out of. Simple Soylent Green, yes. The scoops are coming. You must disperse. But anyway, speaking of near future dystopias, let us not hesitate another moment. Let us leap face first into the genre that is cyberpunk. Now, odds are you have encountered or experienced cyberpunk in some fashion in the media. Cyberpunk from, I would say, the late 80s, well, really until now, in media has really, really, really kind of, as a subculture, it's everywhere. Its beginnings, most everybody's first blush with cyberpunk was, of course, Ridley Scott's seminal Blade Runner. The cavernous and canyon-like streets of an overpopulated, polluted, perpetually rain-soaked Los Angeles. You know, streets that even during the day didn't receive daylight. The ever-present, ever-outre pressure from media, from brands. Is there a moment on screen in Blade Runner where you do not have branding just pushed in your face? And of course, you could make the argument, well, Bill, that's movie branding. Companies paid to do that, but it's more than that. You know, it's so much more than that. It impinges on you. And this scrapyard future that the world finds itself in 2019 through the vision of 1982 is highly evocative. It's how so many of us first saw cyberpunk. Now, a lucky few might have read the earliest writings in 1980 and 81 by William Gibson. I remember reading Johnny Mnemonic. Now, my apprehension of science fiction at that point was fairly Buck Rogers in the 25th century and Star Wars and Star Trek. So the gritty, grungy, dirty noir future of cyberpunk kind of went over my head. I didn't really get it. But it was there. Gibson expanded out from the huge cultural splash that was Blade Runner and began to lay the foundations for the genre. And there were so many other authors too. You had Rudy Rucker, right? Hardwired. Hardwired was Walter John Williams, but Rudy Rucker worked in the genre. So many other young authors at the time. Well, young at the time. Gibson is a boomer. He is absolutely a boomer. But there were other media that embraced it too. If you watched Japanese animation, the OVAs, right? original video animations, short, 3, 4, sometimes as many as 6, but never enough to constitute an entire TV series of videos. You had AD Police, Bubblegum Crisis, and Bubblegum Crash. And then later in the 90s, we would be treated to visual feasts by Mamoru Oshii in Patlabor the Movie 1 and Patlabor the Movie 2, which are slightly less cyberpunky than, of course, the awe-inspiring Ghost in the Shell. And 1988, of course, brought us Akira, which, like Blade Runner, is a landmark cyberpunk film. And so if all of this is new to you, if you're uncertain of, you keep saying cyberpunk, is that what, cyberpunk is a near future, is a type of near future science fiction. It embraces the elements of noir, detective noir, possibly. It is a lived-in future. It entails lived-in futurism. And what do I mean by lived-in futurism? Lived-in futurism, if you've seen Outland, if you've seen Alien, those are, even Star Wars. Yes, Star Wars. They're lived-in futures. Yes, there's high tech. But it's not gleaming Flash Gordon. Everybody has the wings on the shoulders of their skin tight uniforms and bubble helmets, and they're smiling and they're looking at the giant Oz-like Emerald City off in the distance. A lived-in future. Things are gritty and dirty. There's a pile of rusted machinery over there. The heroes are reading their data off of fuzzy, unreliable green screen CRTs. It's a grungy future. And it's a future where all of that Buck Rogers and all of that Flash Gordon stuff didn't come to pass. It's a gritty, dirty, hard-bitten place where you're more likely than not to wind up no better off than you are today, which is on the lower third rung of society's ladder, right? And so with cyberpunk, you have a lived-in future. You have the creative misappropriation of technology for either recreation or illicit activities. One of the largest aspects of cyberpunk, which is actually absent from Blade Runner and Akira, is the presence of the cyber hacker, or the console jockey, typically portrayed as someone who, they have some kind of brain machine interface and they're able to navigate the illicit dark web of the time to conduct deals, steal money, steal intellectual property. Not too much different from what kids get up to today, really, except, of course, in cyberpunk, there's the ever-present danger of a mysterious they who can reach out across the nascent internet and destroy your mind with a virus that is as effective against neurons as it is against computer hardware, or some kind of corporate police that can kick down your door and take their property back. And thank God we don't live in a future like that now. But I digress. So cyberpunk can be a very dismal, hopeless place. Cyberpunk has its roots even before then, though, and if you really, really want to go back, I would say this book is the key. It is to cyberpunk as the King of Elfland's Daughter is to modern high fantasy, including The Lord of the Rings. I recommend John Brunner's The Shockwave Rider. Now, Brunner was no stranger to dystopian settings. but the Shockwave Rider must have come as a real shock, no pun intended, to fans of the genre. The main character in the book has several identities that he swaps around. He is a computer hacker, not with his brain. He actually has to sit down at a public terminal, but he still hacks accounts, changes data, moves files around. There are online multiplayer deathmatch games, although it's a little bit more cerebral than what we've got today. There's email, there's instant messaging, there is an ever-present and oppressive corporate structure that controls the government from the shadows. Definitely check out the Shockwave Rider. Now, Brunner took the title of the Shockwave Rider from an even older novel written by Alvin Toffler called Future Shock. And Future Shock is not a work of fiction. It is a sociological study of the media society as it was onrushing in the 1960s and 70s. And Toffler predicted that we would face a future where the status quo and what media told us the status quo was would change so quickly that a not inconsiderable amount of people would experience a degree of ennui, of ennui, of disconnect, a future shock. Well played, Alvin. Well played. You might have gotten things a little wrong on the date with the 1980s, but you certainly didn't get anything like that wrong. And I'm going to check your comments here real quick. I'm going to get knocked off the internet real quick. I'm back. Sorry about that. Now, some of you guys are talking about Snow Crash. Of course, Stevenson's Snow Crash came. I would say, as much as I love Gibson's Sprawl trilogy, and I'll explain Sprawl in just a minute. I love Gibson's Sprawl trilogy. I thought the first two books of his Bridge trilogy were equally as good. The third one really let me down. Because I felt that the main character of the Bridge trilogy, despite the fact that it was damn good post-cyberpunk, that he was essentially saying, see, I'm just like the character Laney, except I'm just a little bit smarter. So, yeah, he kind of let me down a little bit, but Snow Crash, I think, was probably the jewel in the crown of the cyberpunk genre. Now, Gibson's Sprawl trilogy. So the Sprawl trilogy itself is 3 novels: Neuromancer, Count Zero, and Mona Lisa Overdrive. But it also entails a number of short stories, which are fortunately collected in Burning Chrome. I really recommend you check out Burning Chrome. Essentially, Gibson builds his world in Burning Chrome, and he introduces us to a few characters who will again be important in the books. It is William Gibson's Book of Lost Tales. or Book of Unfinished Tales, if you will, for the Sprawl trilogy. But the sprawl, and as you might imagine, the name refers to urban sprawl, but the sprawl in the Sprawl trilogy refers to a megalopolis that stretches from Atlanta all the way up the eastern seaboard to Boston, the BAMA, the Boston-Atlanta Metropolitan Axis. And it is implied that it goes as far west as Ohio. But it's basically an unending urban stretch, although there are some rural places. We're introduced in Count Zero to some urban locales. So that's the sprawl. That's where a great deal of the Sprawl trilogy takes place. Some of it later takes place. Mona Lisa Overdrive, rather, takes place, I would say, about 2/3 of it in London. But I absolutely positively think that if you're not going to read any other cyberpunk, if you're just like, look, I just want to read 3 cyberpunk novels and I'm never going to revisit the genre, then definitely read the Sprawl trilogy. Again, Neuromancer, Count Zero, and Mona Lisa Overdrive. And at their core, you'll find that they're very different than what you were expecting. But I do not want to spoil them at all. Now, one thing about cyberpunk is, particularly if you're revisiting cyberpunk is near future. It is largely near future in its presentation. You know, Blade Runner was set in 2019. Well, that was 4 years ago now. We don't have flying cars. We don't have synthetic humans. We do have applications on our computers that will allow us to move around inside of a 2-dimensional space as if it were 3-dimensional. And extrapolate data from them. Voice commands on computer are a thing. But again, there are elements of it that are missing. We don't have off-world colonies, right? And similarly, one of the items that the main character in Neuromancer hawks to get out of trouble with one of his local fences is a palm-top computer with 3 megabytes of RAM. In 1981, 3 megabytes of RAM, you know, that was that was worth a chunk of change. You guys can go find the memory cost over time and look up the cost of what 3 megabytes of RAM would set you back in 1981. But the Sprawl trilogy is set at the close of the 21st century. It is the 2090s. And 3 megabytes of RAM today, like, there are children's toys that have gigabytes of memory in them, right? You guys remember the Leap Pad toys from the mid 2000s? That were, you know, they're little tablets that would run games. Yeah, those things as a default have like 2, 4, or 8 gigabytes of storage in them. So you have to accept certain shortcomings, just like, you know, if you go back and you read a golden age science fiction novel. And Niven, you know, Niven talking about Mars in his known space trilogy, you know, that there's Martians on Mars and that there's water on Mars and there's a breathable atmosphere on Mars. Oh, and he wrote that in the 1960s. Seemed like a reasonable possibility. So you do kind of have to go, yes, okay. Robert Phillips says, we got vape pens. We do. Snow Crash and Diamond Age. Diamond Age. I would almost say that Diamond Age is post Cyberpunk, but we can split hairs and discuss that in the future. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, what you're getting out of Cyberpunk. And I do recommend, if you have a love of speculative fiction, of sci-fi, which by that is something that still, I have had people explain it to me, and I still don't get why true fans of the genre get hacked off when you say sci-fi. I don't find it dismissive. It's like, I like reading comic books. They're graphic novels. Can I borrow that Japanese comic book then? It's called manga. Come on. Sci-fi. There's nothing that, say it. Sci-fi. Anyway, you can absolutely do worse than to sit back and enjoy the Sprawl trilogy in all of its glory. But of course, that's not why we're here entirely, is it? No. We're gamers. We like to game things. And when game writers look at genres, I've heard that it is Jimmy Invictus, I don't know, mini golf, miniature. Exactly. Hypercam, you got it. But we like to game things as gamers. And that, of course, means that in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, just as Cyberpunk itself began to rise in the early 1990s, the late 1980s, we started to see it enter into pen and paper role-playing games. Now, there are more or less quite a few Cyberpunk role-playing games. There have been, various attempts. Free League, whom I mostly like what Free League does, recently released a Blade Runner RPG, which I'm kind of interested in checking out. Free League, if you want to, break me off a copy to review, I'm just saying, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no. But, and then of course there was Shadowrun, which was Foss's attempt to put peanut butter and tuna together. Shadowrun is low fantasy hack meets cyberpunk, in that it kind of follows the formula of Rifts or of Torg, in that one day everything just kind of goes berserk. Time and space just break open, and suddenly dragons and elves and trolls and orcs and goblins and magic are all real. But it happens when a cyberpunk dystopic future is upon us. I had fun playing once or twice, but I can't say as it ever really fully scratched my itch. Greetings, old Grognard says, you saw Cyberpunk 2020 and had to drop in. Well, you're just in time, because we're fitting to talk about Cyberpunk 2020. So let's talk then about Cyberpunk 2020. When Cyberpunk 2020, or when Cyberpunk hit, it was a big box set, because that's how you released a role-playing game, in a box set. But Cyberpunk It's my understanding, and I should do my homework more, but it was Cyberpunk 2013, and then Cyberpunk 2020. Now, obviously, 2013 and 2020 are in the distant past, but if you're looking at this through the lens of the early 1990s, it seems like processor tech is moving fast enough that some of the tropes of cyberpunk, while they'll be right upon us. And I mean, we can't even get good VR. You know, those headsets are bulky, they're hot, they're headache inducing. And I don't know about you guys, but I put those things on and I'm just like, it's just a TV an inch from my eyeball. Like, nothing feels good about it. It just feels weird and awkward and jerky. So again, there's a retrofuturism with Cyberpunk 2020 that you just kind of got to bite your tongue. But Mike Pondsmith looked at the state of the world. And if you don't know who Mike Pondsmith is, he is probably the guy who has the best voice in role-playing games. I don't mean that what he says is more important. I don't mean voice like, you know, his is the voice of a generation. I mean, if you've ever heard Mike Pondsmith talk, the guy has a voice that can melt butter. I mean, that's just the way it is. Love Mike's voice. But he created Cyberpunk, the role-playing game. And it stands, in my opinion, head and shoulders above other efforts in the genre, even if you deal with the retrofuturism bit. You know, even if you recognize you kind of gotta put up with that. Cyberpunk, the role-playing game, is pretty much the original D&D. It is the 800-pound gorilla of cyberpunk role-playing games. It doesn't have a huge amount of competition, but again, I think it's better than Shadowrun. I think it's better than GURPS Cyberspace. I think it's better than the hero system-based Cyberspace. And Cyberpunk 2020 saw a lot of supplements. There was The Home of the Brave, which was basically an atlas of North America in a dystopic cyberpunk setting, what various cities are like. There was Maximum Metal. And Maximum Metal was, what if I want Appleseed levels of powered armor and fighter planes and Abrams tanks and guided missiles? What if that's the direction I want to take my cyberpunk game? And it gave you the tools to do that with a warning. Hey, DMs, or hey, referees, if you put this in your game, it can screw it up. And if you do that and it screws your game up, don't blame us, okay? I love the warning at the beginning of Maximum Metal. There were many supplements called Chromebooks that introduced new technology that you could wear, new software that you could use for your characters, and new cyber limbs. There were 3 or 4 of those. Just fun books. As I've said, AD&D to me. Now I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with this. But I always felt that AD&D was by default a Greyhawk game. That's just the way it feels to me. I know there's people who, their first blush with AD&D was, playing Dark Sun or Ravenloft or Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance, and they don't see it and they don't feel it. And I understand that. That's your perception. But I always felt that, like, just the default assumption was a Greyhawk or darn Greyhawk-like setting. likewise, baked into Cyberpunk is the Night City setting. And Night City, I feel like it's something that started out as a, look, here's an example. Here's a template of what you could do for a dense urban core that you could build your games around. We'll just call it Night City. But it kind of took on a life of its own and grew out from that. And so Maximum Mike Pondsmith, put it somewhere, and he stuck it between Los Angeles and San Francisco. I don't particularly care for the Night City setting, but I'm not going to start talking about things we need to pull out of Cyberpunk before we take a look at it. So are you guys ready to begin a reading of Cyberpunk 2020? Let me hear it in the chat. Let me know by super chat. No, I'm kidding. Let me know in the chat if you guys want me to stop with this falderall and this faux classroom nonsense, and just get into it, and we'll get into it. Let me open up my documents folder here and open up the PDF here. Kevin said he absolutely loved Cyberpunk 2020. That's awesome. All right, so let's check this out. Now, this is a PDF. Share screen. And I'm going to have to move things around. Can I get away with just sharing a window? And I don't have to actually share. Oh, there we go. So here it is. Now, there are a couple of editions of Cyberpunk 2020. I have probably the last and most recent one that there are a few typos cleared up. It has been a long time since I've cracked open Cyberpunk 2020. Let me just tell you guys that. I have, now that I've started to say that, I have a physical copy of Cyberpunk 2020, which you guys can probably not see because the book is up there. So I have an actual physical copy of Cyberpunk 2020. But enough about that. This PDF was $15 and wasn't cheap, not for me, on Drive-Thru-RPG. But I thought, I should pick it up, and I should definitely do right by Mike and the guys at RTAL, the guys and girls at RTAL, and we should take a look at this now. So I reckon if you want this, it's $15. If after hearing this you're like, that's the Cyberpunk that I want, I don't want it like Cyberpunk 2077, I don't want any other Cyberpunk, I want the Cyberpunk that Bill's reading about, you can get this print on demand off of Drive-Thru-RPG. So, Cyberpunk, the classic role-playing game of the dark future. And it has got some absolutely gorgeous cover art. Got the chips and enhancements, got the right attitude, got metal beneath my skin. I'm chipping in. Johnny Silverhand, of course. Now, if your only encounter with Cyberpunk is the Cyberpunk 2077 game from CD Projekt Red, then, of course, you'll know Johnny Silverhand is Keanu Reeves' voiced character in that game. I'm going to put this back on the shelf if I can. Can I? Yes, I can. Stick it over here. I'll put it back where it belongs later. I just don't want it digging in my back if I have to turn around. So Mike puts perhaps not great rock lyrics, but rock lyrics right on the cover there. And we immediately get given a feel. Here's a guy, he's got the spiky haircut, the vaguely Asian looking eyes that are glowing, and, the big weird looking gun with LEDs and so on. 2020, the second edition, Cyberpunk 3002.2, the classic role-playing game of the dark future. And we get introduced here. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please just hit me up in the chat. I might miss it. You might have to yell at me a couple of times. The corporations control the world from their skyscraper fortresses, enforcing their rule with armies of cyborg assassins. On the street, booster gangs roam a shattered urban wilderness, killing and looting. The rest of the world is a perpetual party as fashion model beautiful techies rub biosculpt jobs with battle-armored road warriors in the hottest clubs, sleaziest bars, and meanest streets this side of the post-Holocaust. The future never looked so bad. But you can change it. You've got your interface plugs in your wrists, weapons in your arms, lasers in your eyes, biochip programs screaming in your brain. You're wired in, cyber enhanced and solid state as you can take it to the edge, to the fatal edge where only the toughest and coolest can go because you're cyberpunk. Cyberpunk, the original role-playing game of the dark future, a world of corporate assassins, heavy metal heroes, and brain-burning cyber hackers, packed with cutting-edge technology and intense urban action. Within this book, you'll find everything you need to take the mean streets of Night City in a game system that combines the best in realistic action and playability. And again, we have another lovely illustration off to the left. Featuring rocker boys, hard rock heroes fighting for change with music and revolution, solos, corporate cyber soldiers, more men than machines, and they might have cyber shoulders also. Mine's been hurting off and on all day. Maybe I could use a cybernetic replacement. Net runners, super hot hackers who can crack any data fortress, capital D, capital F. Media's high-tech reporters going to the wall to get the truth. Nomads, cyber-biking renegades cruising the lethal highways of the post-Holocaust. Corporates, slick business raiders playing the deadly corporate power game. Techies, masters of cybernetics in the heavy metal age. Fixers, street-smart middlemen who know all the angles. Cops, maximum lawmen in the big city jungle. So those, believe it or not, boys and girls, those are all classes that you can play in Cyberpunk 2020. Now, you might be asking me, Bill, and if you are asking me, I can't hear you because this is text. But you might be wondering, is there a new edition? And yes, there is. Yes, there is. I have... You guys can't see it, but I have the latest version here. And this isn't a hardback. This is just Cyberpunk Red. Once again, you guys can't see that except because I'm off in the thumbnail. Cyberpunk Red, which likewise is just the role-playing game of the dark future. But we're looking at Cyberpunk 2020 because it's what I have. It's what I have. And again, you might find that you like this one. You might want to just go out and get a printed copy. It's not hard to get. So we have a dude here checking out his cybernetic arm. You know, those big old coiled wires and stuff like that plugged into his arm. And we see here, this is version 2.01, contains corrections and clarifications to Cyberpunk 2020 version 2.0, including bound-in version of Scream Sheets adventures and new artwork for a free CP 2020 update to bring your version 1.0 online with the newest data in this version, as well as a free data screen correction overlay. Just send us Sazy to RTL, Saurian Games, etc., which I think is pretty funny because this is Cyberpunk, and they're like, yeah, just send us an envelope and we'll send you a piece of paper back. I don't think there's an email for RTL, Saurian anywhere in this book. Have some artwork right there, wires sticking out of a guy. You know, he's cyberpunky because he's got wires sticking out of his head. Well, his chest and his neck. And of course, we have the covers by Doug Anderson, that lovely illustration. Illustrations inside Justin Chin, Paolo Parente, Chris Hawkabout, Sam Liu, Ricardo Crosa, Angelo Montanini, and Scott Ruggles. And I'm not going to go through all the credits here. You guys can pick it up and check it out yourself if you want. So let's dive in here. We have many sections. Now, one thing that I want to point out is the original box set, which I did, I had it loaned to me on a long-term loan for a long while from my buddy Jeff, is Friday Night Firefight used to be its own standalone rule system. When you got Cyberpunk, you got the rules for character generation and the rules for skills and net running and all that sort of thing in one book. But Friday Night Firefight, you could technically use for skirmish scale war games. It did not lean on cyber technology at all. It did not. What's the word I'm looking for? It did not bank on any cyber technology. That was all described in the rule book as modifying 2 hit rolls. Friday Night Firefight was literally just my guys have got guns, your guys have got guns combat resolution system that you could use pretty much for any genre. But here, of course, they just ditch any conceit that it's for anything but cyberpunk and just bolt it right in. And then there's Netrunner, which is, of course, net running. It's putting your brain online. All things dark and cyberpunk, that's 10 pages of fluff. Running cyberpunk, kind of a how-to. There's only 3 pages of that. Never Fade Away, a cyberpunk story/adventure. 13 pages long. Megacorps 2020, corporate profiles. Night City, what I was saying about there being a baked-in campaign world. Face of the City and Scream Sheets, putting the cyber into the punk. So let's look at character roles. I mean, that is pure 1990s RPG art right there. That wouldn't be out of place here. Riss, Torg, any number of other role-playing games of the era. I'm not complaining about it. Don't get me wrong. That's not me throwing shade at all. View from the edge. So right here, as a cyberpunk, you grab technology by the throat and hang on. You've got interface plugs in your wrists, weapons in your arms, lasers in your eyes, biochip programs in your brain. You become the car you drive, the gun you shoot. With cyborged fingers, you pick computer locks. With enhanced senses, you see into the future. And of course, again, it's a very 90s thing. We've got view from the edge. Lots of gray box text to the left and to the right. No exception here. There's some loving every minute of it lyrics from Loverboy. Not the first band I think of when I think of cyberpunk, And that's something else, and I kind of completely skipped over this, but industrial music really kind of came into existence in the late 1970s with who was it? You had bands like Kraftwerk, Laibach, Genesis P. Orage, then later Front 242, Ministry, Revco. So many bands were wrapped up in the cyberpunk attitude. It was hard to tell where the literary and fashion genre of cyberpunk started and the music stopped, and the music stopped and the fashion started again. They were very closely blended together. So if you get this, I recommend downloading a playlist of the bands I just mentioned. Just put your headphones on, listen to some classic Front 242, some Frontline Assembly, maybe a little bit of Nine Inch Nails thrown in there, not Trent's angstier bits from that. Definitely some Emergency Broadcast Network. Absolutely, those guys were cyberpunk. And listen to that while you play. I mean, we have the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack and classic rock and so on as our musical soundtracks for fantasy role-playing games. It's the bands I just mentioned for cyberpunk. So the soul of a new machine. The world of cyberpunk is a violent and dangerous place, filled with people who'd love to rip your arms off and eat it. Rip your arm off and eat it. The traditional concepts of good and evil are replaced by the values of expedience. You do what you have to survive. If you can do some good along the way, great, but don't count on it. Cyberpunk characters are survivors in a tough, grim world faced with life and death choices. How they make these choices will have a lot to do with whether they end up as a vicious animal roaming a ruined world or retain something of their basic humanity. Cyberpunk characters are the heroes of a bad situation working to make it better or at least survivable whenever they can. Whether it takes committing crimes, defying authority, or even outright revolution, the quintessential cyberpunk character is a rebel with a cause. As a cyberpunk role player, it's up to you to find that cause and to go to the wall with it. This is the essence of cyberpunk, playing your character with the proper disaffected, cynical yet idealistic style. Whether you're a biker with leathered skin and metal claws or a debutante in satin sporting the latest in designer cyber optics, you're going to need a certain panache, a certain flair in portraying yourself. To achieve the essence of the 2000s, you need to master 3 concepts. 1, style over substance. It doesn't matter how well you do something as long as you look good doing it. If you're going to blow it, make sure you look like you planned it that way. Normally, clothes and looks don't matter in an adventure. In this world, having a leather armor jacket and mirror shades is a serious consideration. 2, attitude is everything. It's truth. Think dangerous, be dangerous. Think weak, be weak. Remember, everyone in the 2000s is carrying lots of lethal hardware and high-tech enhancements. They won't be impressed by your new H&K smart gun unless you swagger into the club looking like you know how to use it and are just itching for an excuse. Never walk into a room when you can stride in. Never look at someone unless you can make it your best killer look. Use your best "I'm bad and you aren't" smile. Don't sit around the flat or cube waiting for the next job. Get out there and hit the clubs and hangouts. Make sure you're where the party starts. Live on the edge. The edge, and it's in bold, so you know this is important. The edge is that nebulous zone where risk takers and high riders go. On the edge, you'll risk your cash, your rep, even your life on something as vague as a principle or a big score. As a cyberpunk, you want to be the action, start the rebellion, light the fire. Join great causes and fight for big issues. Never drive slow when you can drive fast. Throw yourself up against danger and take it head on. Never play it too safe. Stay committed to the edge. Roles, the core of cyberpunk role-playing. Now, this is interesting because you would think a game as open as this, talking about whatever you do, just do it with panache. Whatever you do, make sure you're in fashion when you do it. You might think at a glance, okay, all right, I can go anywhere, do anything. This game has classes. Just as Advanced Dungeons & Dragons has fighter, magic user, cleric, thief, assassin, monk, bard, illusionist, druid, paladin, ranger, almost forgot. Cyberpunk has classes. So let's take a look at those. Oh, I missed something down at the bottom. The world of cyberpunk is a combination of savage, sophisticated, modern, and retrograde. Fashion model, beautiful techies rub shoulders with battle-armored road warriors, all of them making the scene in the hottest dance clubs, sleaziest bars, and meanest streets. this side of the post-Holocaust. Each character in this world is playing a role. A face that person projects to the outside world is the real thing. There are 9 roles in Cyberpunk: rocker boys, solos, netrunners, corporates, techies, cops, fixers, medias, and nomads. As a Cyberpunk player, you must select one role for your character. Special abilities. Special abilities are skills usable only by specific character roles. For example, rocker boys have the special ability of charismatic leadership, which represents the vast amount of power they have over their legions of fans. When using a special ability, you will add its value to the specific stat as if it were a skill. Rocker boy special ability, charismatic leadership. We were just talking about that. This skill allows the rocker to sway crowds equal to his level ability squared times 200. They're already throwing math at us. Okay, ability level is 2, squared is 4 times to 800 people, you know. Solo special ability, combat sense. Added to all initiative and awareness checks, this makes the solo the fastest reacting person in a situation. Your solo is basically a fighter. Rocker boys are bards. Netrunners are magic users. Netrunner special ability, interface. This skill reflects the Netrunner's ability to manipulate interface programs and is the skill used when operating menu functions such as locate remote, run... I wish I had that ability. I consider myself a Netrunner, and I wish I could locate remote. That damn thing goes missing. Sorry, it's funnier in my head, I guess. Locate remote, run software, control remote, LDL link, load, create, and delete. Other players can enter the net, but can't use the menu. Techie special ability. This general repair skill allows the techie to temporarily repair or alter anything for 1d6 turns per level of skill. MedTech special ability, medical tech. This is the skill used to perform major surgery and medical repairs. Media special ability, credibility. The ability to have people believe what you are saying while in your on-air persona. I don't know. Would you guys say I was a media? I mean, we live in a cyberpunk future, right? Put your answers in the chat. I want to know. Would you guys say I was a media? I'm not a rocker boy. I don't think there's ever been... I don't think there's ever been 800 people willing to listen to me. You have this vaguely Glenn Danzig-looking guy here. Cop special ability, authority. The ability to intimidate or control others through your position as a lawman. And the best, Catman. Corporate special ability, resources. This represents the corporate's ability to command corporation resources. It is used as a persuasion skill based on the scale of the resources requested. Bill the Floridian Idoru. Thank you. Fixer special abilities, street deal. The ability to locate people, information, etc. This is a higher form of making a connection, life path page 27. Instead of knowing only one person, you have connections everywhere. In gameplay, a successful use of street deal allows you to locate and acquire a desired person, place, or thing. Nomad special ability, family. This allows the nomad to call in as many family members to aid him as his current family. Ability level times 2. And then here on page 5, Maximum Mike throws us this box text and says, a special note about this printing. Ahem! It is not a 3rd edition. In this reprint, we've taken extra time to fix all the corrections and typos we could find, plus squared away a few of the problems and inconsistencies. But these rules are the same rules you've been using since the 2020 edition of the game was printed. But there is one big change, the art. One of the great joys of publishing international editions is that sometimes your licensors come up with cool stuff you really wish you'd put into your game. The new art in this printing is from the great guys at Stratolibri, who published Italian cyberpunk. Many thanks to Paolo, Matteo, Riccardo, Angelo, Silvio, and of course Giovanni. We hope you get. We hope you, all of you out there, like it as much as we did. Man, slow night tonight. I guess everybody's over watching the painting live stream at PML. Okay, so do you guys want to go like do a deep dive on each class? I feel like we're like sliding inexorably down the sides of the antlion trap, and there's a deep dive antlion with its mandibles crunching, waiting for us to do the whole thing. But we all look like Richard Marx in the 80s. Magnificent Devil says, now we look like Groucho Marx. I mean, I feel like we could just look at other parts of the book rather than just digging through each and every one, each and every class separately as we go, right? Just kind of jump around. Jump straight into the antlion. Okay, so Rocker Boys, you know what? I'm not gonna go through page after page of this. We're just gonna look at the headlines. Rocker Boys, rebel rockers who use music to revolt and fight authority, unless they're Idoro from Japan, and then they are built by the authorities. Oh, it must be cold on that page, and that one. Oh, and of course we've got over here, and we can only assume that this lady with a face that could be used to auger a hole in your drywall, well, chin anyway, always knew what I had to do. It was really obvious. There were these scum out there who were messing with the world. They were killing people, doing bad stuff to the land, and lying in our faces when we caught them. So decided to put the heat on them and make them sweat. That's why I became a rocker boy. Music always gets hammered down to the 3 A's: acts, attitude, and audience. Me, I had an axe and attitude. Now all I had to do was get the third one. Carry, Eurodyne, rocker boy. Solos: hired assassins, bodyguards, killers, soldiers. Have sort of a vague, it could be from Appleseed, it could be from Blade Runner. We're not telling you. Look going on there with that guy. After I got out of the army, I had a problem. I was good at what I did, but no one was hiring. I mean, what do you do when you're a highly trained killer with a background in demolitions? Read the want ads? After a few months on the street, I got into a dust down with a local booster lord. I flatlined him and went back to my drink. Within 10 minutes, a recruiter from Militech came up to me and dropped a business card. Now I'm a company man. The pay is good, the work's steady, and they pay me for my spare parts. So far, I'm still alive. So far, so good. Morgan Blackhand. Netrunners, cybernetic computer hackers. You guys who live in real space, you move so slow. Me, I like it in net space. It moves fast. You don't get old. You don't get slow and sloppy. You just leave the meat behind and go screaming. Yes, because that's the body of someone who sits behind a computer for 15 hours a day, not this one. First system I ever hit, I think they had some sort of Weeful runner playing sysop for them. I burned in, jolted the guy with a borrowed Hellbolt, and did the major plunder action all over the data fortress. Somewhere out there is a guy with half his forebrain burned out. I wonder if they ever found the body. I wonder if they'll find mine the same way. Spider Murphy. Techies, renegade mechanics, and doctors. Hello, nurse. And by the way, guys, I'm not slamming this at all. This is this is good. I just haven't looked at it in forever. So you want me to build a delay switch into the thing and you don't care about the explosion radius? No problem. At least you got a simple job. Last guy in here, he wanted me to build him a cyber hand that had a built-in, oh, frack, you don't want to know. People do the weirdest stuff these days. I hear they're coming up with new cyberware. I hear with this new cyberware they're coming up with in Chiba, you're going to be able to cram your body with more options than a fracking Mercedes Aerodyne. No problem. If you can get parts, I can fix it. Count on it, Chambada. Ugh. Mr. Ice, head of design, Technics Inc. Medias, newsmen and reporters who go to the wall for the truth. Now, there's not a bunch of this in Gibson's Sprawl trilogy, really. I definitely feel like one of the places where Maximum Mike here was lifting this from was, of course, from the excellent Max Headroom TV show. So, yeah, I mean, you basically got Edison Carter, the character class. With that, I'm sorry. I promise. I like the game. I'm not making fun of it, but oh my god, that looks like the blender my wife just bought. Like he's just holding up the blender. Because now, and we can say this 30 years after the fact, right? 32, 33 years after the fact. You got a phone, even crappy phones that you pay $40 for at the pharmacy can shoot in 4K, right? Okay, so it's dangerous. Look, I'll tell you something. When I was a kid, I used to watch as a reporter on the TV news. They wore those chill trench coats and were always broadcasting from some exotic place like Mozambique or Saigon. They went right into Central American war zones with cyber grunts, and they even got the story even when the shooting was maximally fierce. That's the part I like, the danger. Lyle McClellan, Network 54. We salute you, Lyle. Cops, maximum lawmen on the mean 21st century streets. And this guy would have me dead to rights, because honestly, if somebody with two big giant bunny ears coming off of his head pointed his gun at me, I would just fall over laughing. I would not be able to not just break up laughing. Drop it, punk. I don't want to hear your life story, and I don't care what society did to you. I just want to see that gun hit the floor now before I give you an extra nostril. Sergeant Max Hammerman, NCPD. Corporates, slick business raiders, and multi-millionaires. This guy put on a little too much lipstick. Yeah, he's looking like Arnold there. Money. Yeah, I got money. A new BMW Aerodyne and a penthouse flat at the corporate zone. All the money ain't worth frack. You play this game for power. The power to get things done, to make the big decisions, to affect things. You make a phone call, and the next thing you know, you're telling the president of some Bush League Euro nation that he better play it your way, or he's history. That's why you play. That's why I'm with the company. An unidentified corporate. Greetings, Kabuki. Fixers, deal makers, smugglers, organizers, and information brokers. We're doing a read through here of Cyberpunk 2020. Don't give me this Robin Hood stuff. I'm doing a job, no more. I give people what they want, and they pay me out. Okay, so maybe I even a few scores here and there, but that's good for business. You make a friend, they'll take you in when the street's too hot. and they'll pass you a few bits of data when you call in the markers. But that's business. I got a slogan. How much you pay me? Phil Nacho Hernandez, fixer. Nomads, road warriors, and gypsies who roam the highways. Guns and cyber bikes. That's how we hold the line. We don't have any home except the caravan. We don't have any rights except what we take. We get run out of town by the cops. We get raided by the road warrior packs, and we survive because we've got guns and bikes. There's kids, old men, and women, families here. This ain't no booster gang. These people are my family. Nomad Santiago. So we've got some pretty cool art there. Got what looks like Wolverine in the background. Check him out. He's even got an X on his cowboy hat. So after the classes, we kind of get into getting cyberpunk. I'm gonna take just a quick moment here and catch up on y'all's comments, because y'all have been commenting some, and I don't want to miss anything. The Batman Judge Dredd crossover was amazing. Judgment on Gotham. It was riotously funny in places, but I did like it quite a bit. This is our old future. So all future cops look like Mr. Slim. Oh my God. Now that's in my head and I can never get it out. Thank you. Thank you very much, North of the Rockies. Oh God, what have you done to my brain? Hey, Patty, thank you very much. Yeah, this is basically, I moved the set around. I basically wrote it. I used to be here, and now I'm here, and there's a new bookshelf here with a whole bunch more stuff that you guys can see on it. I got a wide angle lens so we can kind of take in the monumental awesomeness that is my studio/game room. So let me ask you guys something here. Now we'll go for a little bit longer on this read through. Do you guys want to make this part of a deep dive? We have not a lot of folks here. I don't think we've breached more than like 18 watching at one time. Do you guys want to do like a multi-deep dive into this rule system, making characters, things like that? Or just kind of a final thoughts and, hey, that was Cyberpunk, and then we'll move on to something different next week. Greatest in all the land. What about those of us with back, neck, and face problems? Ha ha! Yes, I do love Hero Quest. Do an adventure. I mean, at some point, I might run a Cyberpunk game on Friday nights. Jack Photon suggested doing switching things up on Friday nights, and maybe we'll do Cyberpunk. If we do Cyberpunk, I would probably, even though we're looking at 2020, I would probably go with a newer version, the aforementioned Cyberpunk Red. Has anyone read this? But then I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And the reason I'm not sure is with games that are reliant on story timelines, And this seems to be a function, like if you're not ready and willing to embrace retro future, Jorge wants an OSE review. You want a review? So a review would be like a standalone video, like something that I released during the day. So perhaps I could do that. You okay, Orbital Air? Did you just did you just copy and paste your crypto wallet to us, my friend? Do you need me to delete that? Everything okay, Orbital? But what I'm saying, Jorge, is I would do, I would absolutely do an OSE review. It just wouldn't be on a live stream because I'd want to limit it to like maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and that's not enough for a live stream. So let's talk a little bit about retro future, cyberpunk, and embracing that sort of thing. I mentioned earlier that in the opening chapters of Neuromancer, the main character, Case, Henry Dorset Case, has a computer with 3 megabytes of memory in it. It's implied that it's stolen. The memory, not the computer, although it could be both, and it probably is, considering Case's nature at that point. So when you read that, you can't but smile in the books because you can't do anything about it other than that. When you're playing a quote unquote science fiction game that is set in the near future, that has become the recent past and what has been discussed, you can do a couple of things if it doesn't fit the current vision of the future. GDW updated Twilight 2000 a couple of times to try and keep pace with the fact that the Soviet Union was collapsing and then eventually just went out of business. Now, when we woke up in late 1990 and realized that the world wasn't going to end, that the Soviet Union was, for all intents and purposes, out of business, that they would probably not be pointing their nukes at us anymore, that it wasn't going to be 120 divisions charging through the Fulda Gap, soaking down our troops with VX gas to soften them up, and us responding with tactical nukes. I think a lot of people just kind of wanted to put the whole thing behind us. We just wanted to forget about it. We didn't want to think about it. And you can make all the comments about, those refusing to remember their history or doomed to repeat it or whatever. But the reality is it made for a crappy game, because the reality of Twilight 2000 just became less and less and less probable. Okay, but what if, now hear me out, what if Gorbachev gets overthrown? And it was probably difficult at the time to see how people might want to believe, because we'd just gotten out from under it. Why would anyone want to go role play where it didn't stop and the USSR stayed in business and this horrible thing happened in the mid-late 1990s, right? But a lot of games that are timeline reliant try to advance their timelines to keep up with real world events, and I think it does them. I think it does them an injustice in doing that. And I feel like if you play Cyberpunk 2020 and, you know, your vision of the future of 2020 is very Blade Runner-esque, spinners, androids, cyberware, blender-sized video cameras still being a must for reporters, so on and etc. Embrace the retrofuturism of it. You know, it's what were we talking about last night? We call it retro stupid, you know? Just embrace the retro stupid and don't worry about, yeah, you know, we're talking about the year, you know, the distant future of 2020 and it's got all this kind of silliness still in it. Just embrace it. Don't worry about, oh no, we should set this in the late 21st century and try and predict what the future is going to be like. I mean, that's a possibility too, right? Where you take current technology and then you try to extrapolate it out and just go with it. I mean, there's a laptop in one of the Chromebooks. There's a laptop in one of the Chromebooks. The Chromebooks are gadget catalogs for Cyberpunk. And in one of those manuals, there is a laptop described that even for the day was barely keeping with a really expensive laptop. And this was supposed to be set in 2020. And I mean, today we've got computers that you could have run an entire major corporation off of back in 1993 that are essentially disposable. You know, flimsy little Chromebooks and stuff like that, if you went back to 1993, could handle all the data traffic of a major corporation. So you can embrace, or you can kind of constantly be chasing that. And I think it's, you know, something like the Diamond Age, which is post-cyberpunk, but still has cyberpunky elements, is probably the best you can do for saying, I want it to be futuristic, to be truly futuristic, and also cyberpunky. Because again, go back to Blade Runner. Blade Runner is set in the year 2019. There isn't a flat screen to be found. Everything is CRTs. Nobody has a mobile phone. You know, when Deckard calls Pris from Taffy Lewis, or Pris, when he calls Rachel from Taffy Lewis, he's looking at her. It's a color screen, but it's about this big, and it's a CRT built into a phone booth. So you can embrace that, or you can reject it and try to predict things. And I mean, a good DM can do that. A good DM, you know, someone who's really, really into it could say, okay, you know, your computer is a piece of carbon nanotube smart paper. You just keep it folded up and jammed in your pocket. And it has more computing power per square inch than dozens of expensive graphic workstations from the late 1990s, right? AT&T is still charging for the call. It was, as I remember, was it $1.94? That feels right. I think it was like $1.94. And yeah, 2049 definitely leaned into the alternate history. We did see some flat screens in 2049. We did see some flat panels in 2049. Hello, Paint Minis Live. Good to see you. So I guess what I'm saying is it's easy to scoff at the idea of, you know, I want faster computer access. Drill a hole into the side of my head and put a, you know, And, you know, an illustration of a guy who's got a 3.5 millimeter jack plugged into the side of his head and a, you know, some weird looking chunky keyboard he's carrying on his arm to, you know, jack the matrix. And there's a lot of stuff in cyberpunk that I would still modify. I would still, no pun intended, chip away at. And I might add the modern small mobile phone to say, look, that's your deck. Okay, there you go. That's your deck. There's a lot of things that I would do with it to kind of bring it up to speed. I don't know that I would keep with the Night City thing. I firmly believe that if you're going to play in a modern or futuristic setting, if you live in even a moderately large town, set it there. You can really make it live and breathe. All of my, almost at Stranger Things, all of my Tales from the Loops game that I run are set right here in Orlando. Because I lived in Orlando in the early 1980s, and I can tell you exactly what's where. You know, you're all adolescents. You all live in Winter Park. You go to the Aladdin's Castle Arcade in the Winter Park Mall. You know, you buy your comic books at the B. Daltons there, unless you go downtown to Enterprise 1701. You know, right next door to the Ralph Kazarian Insurance. You need a full physical keyboard for your deck. I have a phone. I think the last Android that was released for it is like Android 4.01, and it's a Samsung, and it has I don't remember what it's called, but it runs it has a keyboard. It has a QWERTY keyboard built into it. I don't mean it's got a little screen and a keyboard underneath it. I mean, it's a standard touchscreen kind of phone, but if you turn it on its side and click it open, it's got a QWERTY keyboard. Ray was your favorite Ghostbuster. What did you do, Ray? Yeah, guys, definitely, if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe to Paint Minis Live. I think it was let's show this prehistoric bitch how we do things downtown. Let's show this prehistoric bitch how we do things downtown. Is coffee still around in Gamma World? That's a good question. I mean, I would imagine there's plants that produce stimulant effects, because you got to remember, biology has run amok. You know, where it wasn't completely wiped out, it has gone crazy. So, I mean, you know, you might find, you might find something that looks and tastes like an orange, but is essentially nothing more than a near lethal caffeine delivery system. Wanted to play a Hister llama who was a coffee shop millennial, but not sure if that's a thing in Gamma. You get coffee in Gamma World from our friend Phil, the sentient coffee bush. I love it. Now, I've actually, so the laser keyboard, there is there's a series of books by Harry Harrison, Homeworld, Wheel World, and Star World, and they're dystopian science fiction books. And the main character he uses a computer, and he describes it as having a holographic keyboard, like a laser keyboard that's projected out. And I remember going to who here remembers, this is kind of cyberpunky. Actually, this always made me think of cyberpunk when I would go into the places, but who remembers Market Pro computer shows? Does anyone here remember Market Pro computer shows from back in the day? They're very cyberpunky. They don't exist anymore. I think they just have them occasionally in New Hampshire, and they may not even do that, but they used to go all up and down the East Coast, and they'd have them here in Orlando, they'd have them in Atlanta. And basically, it was all the mom and pop computer stores would come out, and over the course of a weekend, they would sell computer parts, motherboards, CPUs, hard drives, video cards, sound cards, absolutely not pirate copies of video games, lots of surplus computer gear, tons and tons and tons of surplus computer gear. Good night, Jorge. So at the well, let's see. Sorry, I just saw. Anyway, at the Market Pro computer show once, they had a little holographic projector. It wasn't expensive, but it was a holographic keyboard. It projected down onto the work surface, and it was just a PS2 connection. I think this is maybe predated USB. But the laser inside just predicted, or it just sensed how far away in X and Y coordinates your fingers were from it, and it would put the appropriate letter up on the screen. And I was like, damn, I read that in that Harry Harrison book. Like, at that time, it was 15 years before. And I wish I bought one. So I never really saw one again. And the next time I saw them, it was like something being offered like by Apple. And it was just stupid expensive. But I always thought that was a very cyberpunky thing, just touch a button, bleep, and there's this red gridded keyboard right on the tabletop, and you just type. And no, they don't work very well. Like if you're used to touch typing on a mechanical keyboard like I am with my Model M over there, yes, I'm a Model M hipster. Anyone who's ever been on the phone with me and asked me to send them something or look something up, or I've been like, let me put the description up there for you. I'm not actually firing an M60 machine gun. That's my Model M mechanical. Check it. But yeah, trying to type on the holographic keyboard is like I'm typing my name. W. Okay, it sensed no, put too many W's down. Okay, backspace. Well, I got to start again. W. Okay, I got it. I, L, L. No, put another L. L, L. No, that's 3 L's. Damn it. Backspace. Oh God, it erased everything up to the W. Okay. That was my experience trying to use those keyboards. But the concept is very cool, and the concept is very cyberpunky. And in Star World, the hero has he has the holographic keyboard, and I think he's in a prison. The oppressive overgovernment has imprisoned him, and one of the other prisoners has a medallion, and he recognized it. He's like, "Where did you get that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a good luck charm, and it was given to me by my family." He's like, "There's a computer hidden in there," and the guy's like, "What?" It's like, yeah. So he's able to hack into security systems with it. One of the problems with the Market Pro shows was, like, if you went on Sunday, I remember we bought a couple of ViewSonic monitors, nice ones too. Well, I mean, in terms of size and general picture tube, but like we went on the Sunday, bought the monitors, got home, and my darling wife, her monitor just crapped the bed. And we still had the receipt, and I called the guy, it was the Russian. Yeah, I bought a monitor from you at the Orlando Market Pro show, and here's the number off of it, and here's yada yada, and so on. You bring to next show. I'm in Raleigh next week. You come to Raleigh, and I'm like, I'm not coming to North Carolina with the monitor. When are you going to be back in Orlando? I am in Orlando in June, and this is like April. So, we had to wait for the guy to his credit, we rolled up with a monitor, and we're like, I talked to you on the phone. And this rail thin but very pretty blonde girl with a Russian accent was like, "Is okay here." And they gave us. It wasn't a ViewSonic. I think it was a Samsung monitor or something like that. But still, we had like 2 months. When my wife wanted to use her computer, I couldn't because I was giving her my monitor. It was putting, literally moving the monitor back and forth through the house. Minority Report's a good cyberpunk movie. $5 charge. Who had if you did the Market Pro shows, who had the membership? I had the membership for a little while. Basically, you'd pay like $30 and then just get in, and you'd get like 5% off certain booths. I got this. This is an absolutely cyberpunky thing. I'll tell you guys this, and then I'm going to make a decision about what we're going to do about Cyberpunk the RPG. But this is exceptionally cyberpunk. I go to a Market Pro show, and well, there's two stories about that. I went to a Market Pro show, and there's two guys with a booth. They didn't have a sign up, no Ray's computer parts, nothing. They didn't have a sign up. On their table, no tablecloth on the table. On their table, stacked up, like almost to my chin, and as deep as the table is, there are. Do you guys remember Reveal Technologies? They made sound cards and stuff in the 90s. Reveal, and they were always kind of crap. They had the Reveal audio modems that were modems and sound cards built in, so you could have fax machine and answering machine and stuff like that all coming through your sound card, but they were never very good. But Reveal audio modems. This table is stacked many high and almost all the way deep with the same model of Reveal audio modem. Now, every box has got a grayish, oily kind of dust on them. And I know this because I made the mistake of touching it. And there's these two guys, and they look like, I'm not kidding you, dudes out of like an SCTV skit. It was winter. These guys are like wearing like flannel shirts, baseball caps, like flannel jackets, and they're looking around. They're not talking to each other. They're just, and these like they're a sign written on a paper plate that they probably cribbed from the hot dog stand outside. Is like computer parts, $5 or something like that. But they're all the same. And I get close enough, and I notice every one of them has a big red and white sticker on it that says something. It was like destroyed, not to be sold. And so what I think are two, our two industrious computer vendors had done is they had found these pitched into a dumpster somewhere. There had been a fire in a warehouse. Of course, there's smoke damage to everything, firefighting foam, everything. They find these, grab them before they can be properly destroyed, but after they've been tagged as having been destroyed. And they're like, hey, Earl, bunch of computer parts, we could sell these. You get a table at one of those places. You know, nobody's stopping by, nobody's checking this shit out except to do what I do, which is like, ugh. But it was the most ridiculous just these guys there that were like not talking to anybody, you know, even when I walked up to look at what it was. Is it true that the internet was run through a phone receiver at some point? Yes, the internet. We used to have to murder a robot every time we wanted to get on the internet because there were dark gods that lived in the internet, and we had to murder our sound cards. Only the death scream of the sound card would awaken them and permit them to drag open the iron gates to allow data to flow into and out of our computers. Yes, the Robert, the guys with the computer, with the stereo speakers in their vans, those dudes were like high-end computer store compared to how sketch these two dudes were. I'm telling you, it was absolutely like an SCTV skit. But the other kind of cyberpunky thing was there was a guy who was selling. Basically, he had like a long a trailer full of junk computers, and he had a sign and everything. You know, he was a junk vendor, and it was like, you know, like any computer, $20. Untested, you know, no guarantees, as is $20. And I was building a computer for my dad, and it was an E-Machines, and it started out life as a 433 megahertz Celeron. And it had been my father-in-law's computer. And it had kicked around my house for a while. And those E-Machines were very tightly engineered on the inside. They were supposed to be extremely upgradable, and part of that was the hard drive tray was unique to the case. Well, at some point, the hard drive tray had gotten lost. And rather than, you know, double-sided tape a hard drive inside, I was like, I got to be able to find one. And lo and behold, I see that model of E-Machine, except I think it's like a 600 megahertz. And the guy's booth is just open. So I walk over there and lift the case off, and there it is. And I told the guy, I said, I'll give you $5 for that hard drive tray. And he's like, yeah. The Asian guy just working like crazy because people are coming over, you know, buying like 8 computers, stuff like that. I said, $5 for the hard drive tray. Yeah. So I basically gave him a quarter of the price of the computer for the hard drive tray out of it. So that's my other cyberpunky at a computer show story. The rest of the time, I usually just bought stuff like my buddy Scott, God rest his soul. He had an a socket 478 motherboard, AMD socket 478 motherboard, and it just bit the dust on him one day. So I went and like picked up a new board for him for $25, you know, some BioStar or Jton or somebody. It was Jton. It was a Jton motherboard, and it was sold as It was sold as open box, as is one of the tabs that locked down the PC 133 memory had popped off. And Scott just popped one of the tabs off of his dead motherboard, popped it in place, and was good to go for a number of months. Good night, Kabuki. People keep leaving, and the number of viewers keeps going up. What is even that about? That's fine. I'm glad you guys are here. So let's. Oh, and the other thing, and this is not cyberpunk. This is just fun. There it is, settling back down. This is just fun. And I so regret not doing this. How many people out there are fans of the Blues Brothers? We all like the Blues Brothers, right? Remember SCMOD's state, county, municipal offensive driver system? And it was a computer terminal in the police car with a wireless modem and was able to bring up all the data. There was a surplus electronics vendor who had SCMOD's terminals out of police cars. And they're like 20 or 30 bucks, and I had the loose cash at the time. I meant to go back and buy one to set, just to put on the dash of my wife's car, because she loves the Blues Brothers. I wish I could have given her a SCMOD's, but I ended up not going back and picking it up. Had a computer with a malfunctioning motherboard, so I reprogrammed the sound effects to cuss me out and make the red. So that's funny. 3 orange whips. That is awesome, Wave. That is fantastic. So let's talk about Cyberpunk 2020 a little bit more, because we've kind of come to the top of the hour. I've been going for a couple of hours. The question is, do you guys want to do, like, next Thursday or even starting next Monday, do you guys want to do a rules dive and roll up a Cyberpunk 2020 character and just kind of see how things work? We can maybe do some net running with him or something like that, although I guess that kind of puts it out there right on the front of the kind of character that I'm thinking about running, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Is that something you guys would like to do? RPG Grandma says yes. I mean, I'll go out and I'll put a poll out, but you guys are here now. Do you guys want an actual rules dive? Thank you for stopping by, Patty. Take care. Much love to Patty's Parlor. Be well. So yeah. I mean, you guys are here now, and my audience, there's 4,720, 730. I don't know what the count is at right now. I'll have to look. It's driving me. Okay, look, I know that one YouTube can. Oh, that didn't pop up, did it? No. YouTube will sometimes go, oh, that's a bot. I've determined that's a bot. I unsubscribe them from your channel, so nothing bad will happen. But then I also know that it's people. And look, I don't begrudge anyone if they look at my channel and they're like, this isn't for me. But this is kind of, I have gone from 4729 to 4731 to 4730 to 4729 to 4730 to 4731 to 4729 over the last 5 days. It has been bouncing. If there's one or two of you out there who keeps clicking subscribe and unsubscribe, mission accomplished. It's driving me bonkers. So we're currently at 4,731 subscribers. So I will put the question out there. I will ask if you guys want to do an actual dive into the Cyberpunk 2020 rules and gen up a character and have all kinds of goofy fun. Road March, that's awesome. Thank you for your service. Thank you very much. Round of applause for Road March, everybody. We salute you, sir. Thank you for standing the watch. Thank you for being on the thin green line between us and them. Or thin blue line if you're in the Navy, thin darker green line if you're in the Marines. Regardless, it is greatly appreciated, and thank you so much. I can imagine it's bittersweet. That's a big chunk of your life. I mean, 30 years. This role-playing game came out 30 years ago, 1993. Gosh, what was I doing in 1993? I guess I was working at Musicland. I mean, I can't imagine saying, "Well, I've got one more day, and then then I'm not going to work at Musicland anymore." I mean, wow. So that's what we'll do. I mean, if you guys want that, we'll again, I'll put it to vote, but I'm strongly leaning towards you guys. We are in August, by the way. For those of you whose calendars are running behind, set them forward because it's August. Is it the 3rd already, or is it the 2nd? It's the 3rd. It's 8/3. There's less time left in this year than there was yesterday, but there are fewer months left in it than there are that have gone by, which just blows my mind because it seems like it was just last month that I was in Lake Geneva. This month, those of you who have subscribed, those of you who are at the $10 level, whether you are supporting through Patreon, whether you are supporting through YouTube memberships, at the $10 level this month, you guys are going to get a mini Advanced Dungeons and Dragons module written by yours truly. Next month, you get one written by Kyle. This month's will be a lower level affair, but it is a mini module. It will be a few encounter areas, just a little something you might spice up your extant campaign with. Maybe you need an introductory thing, but that is the $10 pledge level guarantee. Every month, you get an adventure. Whether you are, again, on Patreon, whether you have a YouTube membership, you can absolutely do that. So, absolutely, please, please consider doing that. It is greatly appreciaed. But just you guys hanging out is greatly appreciated. You've spread the good word, and I really can't thank you guys enough. There is more studio video coming tomorrow. I'm going to do 2 studio videos tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled for those. Tomorrow night, of course, we'll do a little preamble ramble, and then we'll get back into Gamma World. We're going to play some Gamma World, and then the weekend, of course, is just for me. And after the weekend, well, then we're going to start the whole thing over again. Monday night. Well, I feel like unless we have a guest, this is probably better suited because I come up against a time barrier on Monday night, right? Because I got my Monday night first edition AD&D game that starts at 10 o'clock. And I don't really want to start because I know I've got folks spread across the country. And, a lot of you guys are having dinner or whatever when I'm just starting the show. So what we'll do is next Thursday, we will start character creation for Cyberpunk 2020. We'll gen up a character, maybe a couple, and we'll have some fun doing it. But hey, until then, guys, be good to each other. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. Let me just do that and then do this. Thank you all for being here tonight. I love you all. It was a lot of fun, and more Cyberpunk next week for sure. We'll do that. But until then, we got to deal with the medieval stuff. And you have to ask yourself the question, have you seen my owl bear? Peace, everybody.
Have you seen my owl bear?
Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.